Hello, and welcome to the Apostate's Playground. This episode is pretty quickly done. There's something going on that I have some thoughts about. There's a piece of word paper essay, a piece of journalism, piece of thoughts from the Religious News Network that have created some splashes. So this is going to be a little less thought out than the normal amount of not quite thought out enough that this production usually is.
A little more seat of the pants, I guess, right?
Little more seat of the pants. I'm wearing exercise shorts, so they're not going to stay on very well. I'm going to end this episode pantsless.
That sounds like Patreon content. Don't.
Sounds like OnlyFans content.
Don't do it for free.
If you're going to give it up, don't do it for free.
Nope.
And that sage advice is from me, Phineas, the Grand Marshal of this freak parade. And C, I don't know another parade reference for that. I didn't think that out.
A parade reference?
Yeah, Grand Marshal of a parade. Marches in front. And
that's the drum major.
Stick. What?
Isn't that the drum major? I've never heard it called a Grand Marshal before.
I don't know. I don't know enough about parades.
Yeah, when I was in marching band, we had the drum major, but okay, maybe Grand Marshal, maybe it's somebody who's at the very, very front of the parade or something. I don't know. I've just never heard it before.
I will be honest. The extent of my experience with that as a concept is I got into an argument about somebody who said that the straight pride parade couldn't be homophobic because Milo Yiannopoulos was gay and he was the Grand Marshal. So I haven't really engaged with it.
So
as a concept.
I forgot he existed.
A lot of people forgot he existed. He's still doing stuff. We might catch up with him on a future episode. What?
I said it's better that way. That you forget he existed.
That's true. But this episode isn't about that. This episode is about a different thing that we all wish we could forget existing, and that is Christians invading places to save fox costumed souls for Jesus.
Okay.
So recently a piece came out from the Religious News Service Network, Religious News.
They solely sound legit too. Like that 100% sounds like a real news company.
I mean, they're usually pretty legit. Yeah, I take information from there. They seem fine. I think they're university affiliated, but I can't be bothered to do Google on this episode any more than I already have. And it was a piece about Christian furries. And it was a piece about the Christian Furry Fellowship, which is kind of bullshit. The Christian Furry Fellowship has been around since the 1990s and doesn't really have a presence. It's not really doing anything. I went in and I joined the Telegram and the Discord servers. They're dead. The Telegram server is 3 people. The Discord server is 300 people that don't talk. There's been 2 people who have introduced themselves in the last 24 hours since I joined, and that's it. It's not interesting. There's no there. In the piece, they focus on Hund the Hound, who is a YouTube personality with few thousand subscribers, I think. And it talks about his video Hund the Hound Meets Jesus, in which he's wearing a bathrobe, bumps his head. Jesus says, "Hey, furries are cool." And then he wakes up and he starts working on his next video. It's a 2-minute teaser. And it's all the Christian content I could find. Except that he happens to be Christian, which comes up in not even anything of his that I watched. That came up separately in a documentary where, after I was reading and looking at things, I realized that these people are not interesting at all. What they say in that, when discussing their religion, on I'll put a link to the fandom. It's a mini documentary series on YouTube, and if I find out anybody listens to this and then goes over there and is mean, I will find you, because it's uncalled for. When they talk about their religion, they say things like, well, for me, Christianity is really hard to describe because it's a journey, it's a relationship, it's about love, and it's just going back and forth between Hund and this. I will never remember this furry's name, but after I forget my children's name, I will always remember the red fox furry in a Panera Bread employee uniform.
Okay.
It will always stick with my mind because it tracks so hard. There's something about Panera Bread and the idea of furries eating and working there. If I walked into my local Panera, maybe this is just because I live in a really liberal area, but if I live adjacent to one. But if I walked into my local Panera Bread and there was just a furry behind the counter, I wouldn't blink. Maybe it's a me thing.
I mean, we all live under capitalism, so.
Well, and that's it, right? There's some places I wouldn't expect to. I grew up near like the Seventh-day Adventist gathering place in Oregon. It was in the opposite end of the city from me, which it was a very small city. And it was just their like regional gathering place. And if I walked into their bookstore and I saw a person in a, blue wolf outfit, red fox outfit, cow outfit, sloth outfit, whatever, it would be really out of place. But something about like Panera Bread or Powell's bookstore, I would have no questions.
Because maybe they mostly advertise themselves as more like open and accepting or something like that, and that's why you be more expecting to see them there.
I mean, that's fair, and that's probably it. And there's a lot of spaces that pretend to be open and accepting that it would still surprise me to like see them be accepting of furries. Mm-hmm. Which is really part of the thing of this episode. So the thing about the clickbait pieces about Christian furries is the fact that it's not the fact they're Christian that's being presented as the kind of thrust of the issue. And it's not the fact that they're Christians saying they're worried about being prosecuted, because that is the central point of the piece that is really focused on. It's the fact that Christian furries exist and a majority Christian crunchy. Like, no matter what it is, there's gonna be people who call themselves Christian who are into it. And there's different levels of that. There always are. So the Christian fellowship is pretty much like, it's very quiet. But when you look at their creeds, their tenets, whatever, it's very pseudo-progressive. It's very, being gay isn't the issue. The issue is doing gay. The issue isn't being trans. The issue is in doing something to alleviate gender dysphoria. And we're not going to enforce or prohibit using people's pronouns in our server. You can call them you dead gender? Dead gender? You can misgender. You can misgender them all you want. Or you can be nice. While at the same talking about love and respect and everything else, the problem isn't that they're furries. The problem is that they're Christian. And the flip side to this, and I can't, on the 4th of this month, Hund the Hound was kicked out of the Christian Furry Fellowship Telegram group. And I don't know why. And I'm going to take that to my grave as something I want to know. But he doesn't appear to be the same vibe of Christian. He appears to be I call myself Christian, the cultural metaphysics more than an evangelical thing. Which is part of the frustration, is he's being lumped in with bigots, where part of his backstory is how he started being publicly a furry is he was working in a Christian group and a coworker of his came out as transitioned. He states that she was assigned male at birth and then transitioned to female, and everybody was very nice and accepting, and he recognized that was a huge, big thing that was very brave, and he found it inspirational and came out as a furry. That's not the same kind of Christian. The way atheists aren't monoliths is that Christians aren't really monoliths. So the issue is that if they weren't furries, what would they be?
Just Christians.
Right. So that kind of makes it the same thing. The Christians that are worried about prosecution are worried about prosecution because they're the Christians who are going in with the mission to save furries, a very known for being accepting, very LGBT, very neurodiverse crowd. The problem isn't that they're furries. The problem isn't that they're Christians. The problem, and what needs to be focused on in all of these kind of societal things, is the fact that they're evangelical and they're evangelizing, and they're evangelizing in not their spaces.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
If they had Christian furry conventions, people could go if they were curious, and they could convert those people. But going to just furry conventions isn't really any different than just going to a con and trying to convert people. Because what is a furry?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Your turn.
Let's see. I don't know if I'm 100% sure or accurate or whatever, because I've just pieced things together over time, but I believe it's someone who is like, they have a, so I think they tend to dress up in a suit or a costume representing what's known as their fursona, FUR fursona, but it's really just like it's their identity. It's like who they really are inside. Like the person you see normally walking down the street is like I guess would say like a mask maybe, and then who they really are inside and everything, or like they're the animal is the animal that they are, that they feel they are. Um, and yeah, that's pieced together. It's sort of what I've gotten from it. I don't know how right I am, but it's like basically that's their identity. That's who they are, and um, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, from everything I'm aware of, it's kind of a spectrum, and
yeah,
a
oh
lot
yeah,
of people, a lot of people use their fursona to exhibit their ideal self.
yes,
There was I don't remember if it was a religious news service or if it was the website Fur Science, but there was a PhD student who was talking about how when he was just doing human person stuff, he was anxious, he was shy, he had a lot of social nervousness. He felt like he didn't really belong anywhere. And when he was doing the furry thing, he felt outgoing and friendly and fun. And so
felt
it was a way
comfortable.
to, he felt comfortable. So it was a way for him to put out his best qualities. And there are people who abuse that. There are people who use it to act out their worst qualities. And that is according to survey data gathered by Fur Science, which does a lot of looking at what is going on in the furry community. But a lot of it is like, it's overwhelmingly positive. It's overwhelmingly a way for people to get out the good qualities they want to exhibit.
Yeah,
Kind of like when you sit down at a microphone and record and you want to seem a lot nicer and more patient than you are.
Hmm.
Or you want to
Or
seem a lot
funnier.
more adversarial or funnier. Or you want to be able to accurately and publicly represent your desire to fist fight a senator from Texas.
But not get sued for it.
I'm not threatening him. At no point have I said I want to jump Ted Cruz. I want to fight Ted Cruz in a sanctioned capacity where we have both agreed and consented. That way it's a fist fight and it's not assault. I imagine Texas has very unrestrictive laws as far as cage fights. Because it's Texas. It's just stereotype.
Why not?
Yeah. The point of that, though, is the fact that they're doing something that we all do. People
They're
see
trying to live their
furries
lives.
as... What's up?
They're just trying to live their lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Like, they're doing something we all do. They're just doing it in a place that people think they're weird for it. But are they? Like, if I wake up, me as I am, if I wake up and I put on a suit and I take a piece of cloth and I tie it around my neck with a knot that is kind of a slip knot, but it really only slips easily in one direction. A tie is a noose. And I go to an office and then we all cosplay being characters from Mad Men. And then I go home and I'm me, which I realize is a parasocial relationship that we have with listeners, but I think everybody that has listened to this could accurately assess how much I would fit into a job where you have to wear a suit. It would be me cosplaying businessman doing business.
Boy, are they going to be mad when they find out you're a CEO? Or Fortune 500.
Yeah, right? But no, it's just that, but more comfortable instead of less. If I want to be seen a certain way, I'm going to dress and act a certain way. And if I'm more comfortable that way, then I'm just being authentic. And the things that I'm using to help me get there are just the trappings of authenticity. And if I'm comfortable that way, I'm comfortable that way. And we don't bother people for almost anything else. Shawn Michaels spent 30 years wearing sequins and dancing around well into his 50s to "I'm just a sexy boy, I'm just your boy toy," before doing combat theater with other grown-ass men. The fact that he's very Christian isn't why that's weird. The reason why that's... What's that?
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's super Christian.
Oh.
And the fact that he's a Christian isn't what makes it weird. It's the fact that pro wrestling is really, really weird when you deconstruct it.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's not like people go say, so when you frame it, a problem you didn't know existed, Christian furries. If you ignore the part that isn't a problem, Christians going into places where people don't want to be evangelized to and evangelizing is a problem that we know full well exists. It's a very natural progression of a problem that we all know exists. For what is, I mean, if you live in a society with 300 million people, and just say 150 million of them are Christians, and then of those 300 million people, a million, so 1/3%, like dressing in animal costumes for whatever reason, there is going to be a non-zero amount of overlap.
Yeah.
So not only should it not be surprising, and should it not be a problem you didn't know exist, and it's scandalous, click my link, it's making the fact that they're furries an issue. The problem isn't that they're Christians evangelizing, the problem is that they're furries evangelizing. And it just feels like some bullshit.
Yeah, I imagine because it's sensationalized, because these people who are, I imagine there are a lot of people who are worried that like they hear the furries evangelizing, and the first thing that they go to think isn't that they're evangelizing about Christianity where nobody is interested, but it's more so that the person's thinking that the furries are evangelizing about being a furry, because a lot of people have like just either of those, aside from those who know nothing about it, there are people who think negatively of it, like are afraid of it or whatever, and they're worried about furries knocking on their doors and evangelizing about becoming a furry. Have you heard the good word? The fuzzy word?
I think that's part of it. like I think that you've hit on an interesting thought that,
Yay.
which is, it's not surprising. But I don't think the kind of people that have an issue with furries have an accurate idea of what a furry is.
Not usually, no.
Because it's there. I think the idea that they have is closer to transgender than it is to feeling more at home in a Ren fair than daily life. I think it's a little I think the difference between I think that part of the furry, I don't want to say, ooh, no. I almost said I think part of the furry problem, and that
Oh no.
feels very Jewish question. So I think part of the people that I think part of
Conversation?
I think part of the problem that people have with furries was part of the problem, people. It was very seashells.
Okay.
I think part of that is the fact that, like, if you feel more at home in like Victorian style dress, if you feel more at home in like 60s mod fashion or tweed, nobody's really going to bat an eye. They're going to think you're a little bit of an oddball, but that's just how you like to dress. It doesn't matter that it's a way of presenting yourself that feels more comfortable. You're not doing anything odd. You're just dressing weird. And I don't know. I've never really seen anybody react with like big negative impulses because somebody's dressing weird to be comfortable. And I think that if people understood furries more as that, rather than either as what seems to be like closer to transgender than wearing a thing. And
there is definitely tends to be in a I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off.
no, you're good.
I was going to say there definitely tends to be, it's par for the course, I guess, for people who are like outraged or worried about like the aberration or differences or whatever, is the whole idea of deviancy. It becomes sexually deviant, or there's sexual deviancy or whatever, which is often under the surface of the complaints about transgender people. And I think I have in fact heard of, there's definitely been jokes and stuff about sexual deviancy involved in the furry community. Like it's like, oh, you're automatically sexually deviant, and it's like usually a concern people have about a community that they don't know or understand, or
Right.
want to
And that's
make a bad guy.
yeah, and that's the other major conception of freedom. Is that it's strictly a kink, right?
Yes.
And that's not remotely true. Furries, so to bring the metaphor full circle, some people like to dress like animals and fuck other people dressed like animals. And that's fine. There's no issue with that. There's no issue with that outside of like normal sexual morality. And I don't see it as any different than if the podcast gets together and has a Peaky Blinders era themed thing, and there's hoop skirts and tweed, and then it's, fucking an old timey underwear and a corset. Outside of normal sexual morality, There's nothing wrong with that. And everybody would agree there's nothing wrong with that. And quite frankly, I like dressing in tweed. I think that late 19th century, early 20th century, we kind of came in a hard second place on male fashion. But it's considered deviancy when the participants look like cartoon characters.
Yeah.
And when big name atheist groups focus on that and act like that's weird, it seems like it does harm to the furry community. And
Well, it paints them with it paints a community with a very broad brush about this is all they're about. This is why they're wrong. This is what they're all about. And yeah.
Right. It pulls the focus away from the fact that the issue isn't that they're Christians and the issue isn't that they're furries. The issue is the fact that they're evangelizing. Because when you do that, you don't want young furries to meet Jesus. You want to hold on to your sexual deviancy. You furries want to sin. When really it's just about that's not the place for that. You're going into a space where that behavior is not wanted and you're doing that behavior. You're doing a behavior that there's probably some people there that are taking refuge from people evangelizing.
Yeah.
And it really seems like it would work to reinforce the idea that it's a kink or it's a trans species thing, which, again, maybe it is. I started reading a psych article and I bailed out. It was one of those things that, like, it's on PubMed and nobody's ever heard of it and it's terrible because it was about furries, but it was a guy. It was about a guy getting implants and plastic surgery and body modification to look more like a tiger in his body.
I mean, people get body modifications and implants and things all the time for not necessarily for the animal to look like animalistic or whatever, but for other reasons. So
yeah,
amazing. There was a whole article about this.
Well, so I'm not sure where furry begins and ends. I don't know if he qualifies as a furry, but it seems to be a dishonest framing to say we're going to talk about furries and what is it to be a furry. This guy wants to get plastic surgery to become a tiger human hybrid. That seems like a dishonest. That guy does exist. He's probably not hurting anybody. Who gives a shit? There was somebody who spends their life as they wear a collar and they do their hair like ears and they do dog stuff. That was on Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil kept making jokes about how, like, they need to get a job. They just need to quit doing the dog thing and just get a job. And that person's not hurting anybody either. So, fine. Right? Like, the issue's not that they're doing these things. It's about how the conversation's being framed. For me. You might disagree.
About
why it's bullshit to act like Christian furries are any more special than anybody else.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could just tell me I'm wrong, and you could tell me why I'm wrong. And furries are a weird aberration that are doing something crazy instead of doing just the same thing all the rest of us do every day in our life, trying to be comfortable in our skin and make a friend and not get fucking proselytized at.
Yeah, trying to find I've been debating the entire time whether or not to use the term because I don't want to hear any bullshit about it, and it's become so loaded now that I don't want to say it, and then people just tune out or zone out or whatever. But safe spaces, safe spaces are important, and it the community provides a safe space for people where, I don't know if I guess it does qualify, but I've only ever heard it used is for neurodivergence, is masking, where people don't have to, I guess, mask or who they are and stuff. They have a safe space where they can be who they are and they can be comfortable, and they don't have to worry about the trauma or chastising or evangelizing, I guess. And they don't have to worry about dealing with the things that they deal with on the regular day outside the community. And yeah, sorry, I had a plan with that and lost it.
No, it's good. I think you hit on it. I think you did a very good job of reframing what I'm trying to stick to, and I think doing kind of a bad job of sticking to.
Actually, on the topic of, I think I've already mentioned sexual deviancy like once or twice, because why not, I guess.
We're all sexual deviants here.
Because that seems to be, no comment. That seems to be a big thing about that people outside of the community worry about, their sexual deviance and everything. And that just made me think about a article I read recently about, I'm going to try and make this quicker. An article I read recently about the Library of Congress classification system of how books are arranged and everything, and subheadings and subcategories and stuff. And the article was basically about how the way things are classified, at least in one section about sexuality in women and in marriage and things like that, is and it basically sort of encourages the bias in the idea that certain other things outside of that traditional idea of sexuality and additional marriage and everything and stuff like that is considered deviant and deviancy and sexual deviancy and stuff, and which creates preconceived notions or whatever. And that's another thing, words mean things, and that's another way, a subtle way that an idea can be ingrained of how something bad something is or good something is or whatever, or aberrant or whatever, or different. And I think that also kind of ties into another video that I saw recently that was actually about roughly the same thing. Well, not quite in terms of the category headings, subject headings and everything from the Library of Congress, about it being before it was changed in Library of Congress, before the subheadings were changed to undocumented immigrants. Previously, that whole section was classified as illegal aliens. And I imagine at least some of your listeners will probably, know about that whole debacle around undocumented immigrants and how they're being mistreated, and how a lot of people just insist that they have to be called illegal aliens, but they were classified as illegal aliens in the classification system. And there was a whole fight about getting it updated, as they did with things like classification systems, calling Black people Negroes in there and other things, and getting stuff updated correctly. And it was a whole fight. But basically, leaving it as illegal aliens versus undocumented immigrants and the whole fight and stuff is basically that just says that like I said before, words mean things. And if you leave it as illegal alien and you tell people that they're illegal aliens and kind of dehumanize them and stuff and as the terrible people and stuff and then like, or if you're in the part of a certain community and people have decided that the only thing about you is that you're a deviant, you're a sexual deviant or whatever, and that's all you do, that's why you do it, that's who you are because of this one thing. It's like it it's a preconceived notion that is kind of reinforced by little things like that, and that idea that they have to go in and evangelize to other people in the community, even though they're in their safe space, evangelize to them because they have to be saved because they are deviants. And there was a thought in there somewhere. It's gone now. Sorry. I saw the entire episode and it just made it like really weird. And I just stumbled my way through everything. So
that's a really good thought.
This is going to be a CC heavy episode because she just stuttered through everything. Like majority of my speech is just stutter.
Good. We need more CC. And that's a really good thought. It presents the furry community as I understand what you said. If you look at it through like critical theory, right? Critical furry theory. It takes Jesus somewhere Ron DeSantis voter just clutched their pearls and died.
And they don't know why.
They have no idea. But if you frame it through what we should call critical furry theory, it seems like it's using
more intense.
It is more. It is. It's great.
Badass.
I love it. It uses othering to maintain a social hierarchy in the same way that critical race theory would see being done with race. I'm not saying furry is a race, obviously, but from what you were saying, it seems like it's kind of the same thing where or I guess if you look at like queer studies and power structures surrounding that, it's a literal 1-to-1 straight across where queer folk occupy a lower place in the social hierarchy that, by converting and giving up your ways, you can climb the rungs of social power.
Yeah, the othering. Yeah, you're right. I feel like there's a term for it where it's like you're expected to give up and become a part of the traditional path or whatever in exchange for assimilation. No, it wasn't that. No? I mean, that's the word, yeah, but that's not the exact one I was looking for. But we should move on because I can't. I'm never gonna get back to it. So
no, it's good. The reason why I kind of reflexively said when you said assimilation is because it does feel very assimilationist. Where when you look at before the 13th Amendment, there was strong assimilationist views in the North, where the people who were arguing for abolition were arguing that slaves should be able to come to the North and then behave in ways that made white people comfortable.
Yes.
And it feels like very similar to that, where come here and act in a way that makes me more comfortable. And it feels like
come here in the way that I want you to do. to make me feel safe and accept you.
Right. So it seems like that's a very easy way to tie into kind of what's happening with the way that Christian furries are being looked at right now, and the not mass media, the very small media, where there's a problem that you don't know about Christian furries. Well, what makes them different than other Christians? They're fucking furries. So it's you wouldn't have a spotlight on you if not for the fact that you're a furry. You would just be another guy if not for the fact that you're a furry. If you don't want negative attention, behave in this way that makes me comfortable.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, this is your episode because you fucking nailed it.
Ow. I mean, I don't believe you. I don't know how you're gonna piece this together and make sense of it. People are just gonna be sitting there like, what the fuck is she talking about? Because like she doesn't talk about anything. It just kind of jumps around, but no.
I mean, no. We've both spent a lot more time studying race and religion than furries.
Yeah. I think most of that is just because it's lived experience. That's a whole thing.
No, that's fair.
Lived experience.
Yeah, well, and that's fair. I like we talked about previously. I try not to assume that you learned about race by osmosis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm white. I don't know how to tie a hay bale. I look terrible in a cowboy hat. I don't like NASCAR.
You put raisins in all your food?
Not all of it. Some foods raisins go in. If you give me a carrot cake and there's no raisin, I'll set you on fire.
Fuck no. Get them raisins out of there. That's ruining a good cake.
I will fuck a carrot cake with raisins in it.
I will throw it in somebody's face.
Otherwise, there's no texture.
No. There's texture. That's what the carrots are for. It's cake. It has texture. By its nature, it has texture.
Cake doesn't have texture. Cake has sponge.
That's a texture.
No, it's gross. I don't like cake. So
then you put more carrot in it, or you put carrot like shavings in it, so it has texture, like crunchy texture.
If you put more carrot shavings,
don't put the gummy raisins in there.
If you put more carrot shavings in there, it's gonna be like you're eating a really like tendony steak. Like it's just gonna be slivery. It's not gonna be good.
And somehow the gummy, gooey ass, stick to your teeth raisins makes it.
What the fuck kind of raisins are you eating? I said raisins. I didn't say put cream of raisin soup in it.
Raisins are chewy and gummy, and like they stick to your teeth when you bite them.
Raisins are dry because they're raisins.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop them from being like chewy and gummy.
Are you sure you're not talking about grapes and syrup?
No, I'm talking about raisins.
What the fuck kind of raisins do you buy? I have never had that issue.
I've chewed raisins before, and they're like,
well, everybody's chewed raisins before.
It's not a good texture. It's not.
No, raisins are terrible.
Chewy. But you just said you put raisins in stuff. They're terrible. Then why you put them in stuff?
Carrots are terrible too. I still like carrot cake.
Carrots aren't terrible.
Carrots are awful.
Carrots are good.
Eating a carrot is chewing on a branch with beta carotene in it. And this is why my fursona isn't a horse.
How do you say carrots are terrible and raisins are terrible and then still love carrot cake with carrots and raisins in it? What is happening?
Have you ever drank vinegar? Just chugged it. Just straight
No.
chugged vinegar. No, because it would be terrible. Have you ever eaten something where vinegar is an ingredient?
Yeah.
Right, and that can be pretty good.
Why are you comparing food to vinegar? Like you don't just chug vinegar. Like nobody does.
Right, because it would be terrible.
That's not even considered like a food or a drink on a regular basis. Also, I think pretty sure that would make you sick.
What are you talking about? Vinegar is absolutely a food. You put it in dressings. You can put it. There's some soup recipes that call for it. Use it in pickling.
It's not something that you would. It's not in the sense that you would drink it by itself on a regular just to drink it. Like I'm pretty sure you would get sick
because it would be terrible.
No, it would make you sick.
But it's yummy as an ingredient. Carrots make you sick. Carrots are terrible. I can't even breathe when I eat carrots because they're dry.
You can eat a whole. If you don't have an allergic reaction, if you're not allergic to it, you can eat a carrot. It's not going to make you sick.
You can drink vinegar. It's not going to make you sick. It's a home remedy for a bunch of stuff. Apple cider vinegar is a home remedy for okay, but yeah, okay.
But it's diluted.
Putting aside the fact that the poison is in the dosage. I mean, if you drink enough water, your kidneys flood and you die. Right? Like eat enough bananas and you don't absorb nutrients anymore and you die. Also, you become radioactive and become banana man and you have to wear pajamas all the time. It's a whole thing. Like the poison is in the dosage. You can drink vinegar. Okay. Hold on. What kind of vinegar are you talking about?
Distilled white vinegar, or just basic white vinegar.
Yeah, I'm talking about like apple cider vinegar, rice wine vinegar, malt vinegar. But
you can still drink too much like apple cider vinegar and make yourself sick. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but if your requirement for something to be edible is that there's not a point where you can have too much of it and you get sick, then I have bad news for literally every edible thing.
I'm not even really saying that. You started out with
right. That confused you because vinegar is not food.
One carrot. You can't eat one carrot suddenly compared to just chugging vinegar? Like what? No. Drinking vinegar? Nobody.
Right. Because that would be gross. You don't drink vinegar because it would be gross. You don't eat carrots and raisins because it would be gross. You take that malt vinegar and you put it on fish, or you take the like red wine vinegar and you put it on a salad. It's good now. Whereas just by itself, it's gross. Raisins and carrots are gross. You put them together in a cake and they're good.
How did we get here?
We felt like we needed a tangent for me to pull out and put on YouTube.
See, I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't either. I have no idea how we got here. I'll let you know when I go through and edit it.
Now I'll forget it existed by then.
Yeah. By tomorrow. I'll forget it existed tomorrow, too. I'll be sitting there editing it and just be like, what the fuck is this?
Just leave it all in. Just fuck it. Just leave it all in.
Just leave it all in. This is a long, hour-long episode. The last 20 minutes is us arguing about cake.
For whatever. Or I assume because is there more like topic to talk about? Is there?
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed wrapping it up. And then you said that you don't know how people will follow what you said. And then I said something about race. And then I said, I'm white. And you asked me if I put raisins on everything. And then I said, no, some things like carrot cake. And then you decided to tell me that you eat weird raisins.
That was my fault. That was my mistake. I shouldn't have even brought up raisins. I knew better than that.
Is that a stereotype?
I knew better than to bring up raisins. Yeah.
That's a stereotype?
White people putting raisins in everything and a lot of stuff. Shit. Yeah, there's there's a whole bunch of, I guess it's become a joke now mostly, but there are quite a lot of recipes out there that involve raisins in them when they don't normally have raisins.
I guess that makes sense. Like, I dodge raisins at the store. I go to the store and I'm like, oh, I want some cinnamon bread, and then they're like cinnamon raisin bread, and I'm like, no, that doesn't. I just want some cinnamon bread.
I can't
Nutella.
trust most chocolate cookies.
Yeah, because people are fucking wild. You can't tell off the
bat if it's raisin or chocolate chip. No, it's not worth it. It's a gamble. No, it's not worth it. Like eating poison.
There's only 2 added foodstuffs that are allowed in chocolate chip cookies, and that is peanut butter. Yeah. And if it's white chocolate, macadamia nuts.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like, keep your raisins out of my fucking chocolate. I don't think about it. And am I white? This has been bothering me a lot recently. Am I white? What is white? There is a field of study called critical white studies that asks the question, what the fuck even is white, and how did we end up doing that in the first place?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have here.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a part where it was like critical white theory, or.
Yeah. It's literally just how did we end up with white people in charge, basically? How and why did we invent whiteness?
Well, then I guess I think I'm going to go ahead and I guess put it out to your listeners or whatever to, I guess, tweet at the main, the main show's Twitter about horrendous abomination recipes involving that were great until somebody added raisins to them. Yeah, just your experiences of raisins being added when they should not be there.
And if nobody says warm garden salad with raisins, you're all liars, because thinking about it, I think we've all had a relative that did that. And I'm talking to the majority of our listeners in Iowa, because that's white Mecca.
Damn.
I think we all I know we need a better Mecca, and we should see if we can share Mecca. The Kaaba is like kind of neat, but no, I think we all have relatives that have been like, you know what'll go good in this salad? Fucking raisins. And that's at Apostasy Powered.
Do you check the Twitter?
Do I check the? Yeah, I check the Twitter. And I am at the letter X, Essential Panda. The show is at Apostasy Powered. At Apostasy Powered.
Apostasy? Like pasta?
Apostasy.
Apostasy Powered.
The show is at Apostasy Powered. The email is poweredbyapostasy@gmail.com. The website is poweredbyapostasy@gmail.com. The Patreon and PayPal are in the show notes. Actually, they're right there. So if you go to the episode description in your player and you just flip over and you go down to the bottom, or maybe near the top. I haven't decided where I'm going to put them yet. There is a PayPal link and a Patreon link. And if you want me to care about your thoughts on the show direction, you should click one of those. And also I'll say your name on the episode.
Oh, that's nice.
I will. It's true. I've also started the last couple episodes. When I get done with them, there's been about a week in advance, and I've thrown them up on Patreon. You can click the link, and it takes you to the Libsyn website. Yes. But it takes you there before it goes public. Yeah. And we're at some point, I don't fucking know when. We haven't nailed down a date, but soon. We'll be going through Ken Ham's book, Divided Nation, and doing a thing about that. And we've been discussing a series on YouTube where we go to Prager University. So look forward to that.
I'm apparently not going to enough university right now.
Oh, no. There's 3 voices that pop up on the podcast, and there's 2 universities that have been attended and a college. So we need a 3rd university. So we're all going to learn how to be conservative.
Yay.
And as a reward, I'll start wearing pants when we record.
Okay. I mean, you do you, I guess.
You sounded really unsure about that.
I don't know what to say. I mean,
Aw.
go you.
Aww.
I don't.
Don't wear pants.